Hello and welcome back to the Connolly Motor Group podcast. I'm your host Dennis Finbar Cronin, and on today's episode of the show, I'm joined by Volkswagen Ballina brand ambassador and Mayo senior footballer Lee Keegan to chat all about life on the pitch, life off the pitch, and everything in between. So sit back, relax, and listen to this episode of the Connolly Motor Group podcast with very special guest Volkswagen Ballina brand ambassador Lee Keegan.
Somebody lays it up here. Keegan, goal! Lee Keegan!
Welcome back to the latest episode of the Connolly Motor Group podcast. I'm your host, Dennis Finbar Cronin, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Volkswagen Ballina brand ambassador and Mayo senior footballer Lee Keegan. Lee, you're very welcome to the show. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Dennis. Looking forward to the questions ahead. So I'm sure it'll be a pleasant few questions.
Absolutely. Well, Lee, we put it out to the public and they didn't disappoint as usual because they've sent us on loads of questions. We were inundated with questions, which is great to hear. We'll get to their questions in just a little bit, but I was chatting to you earlier. You're obviously a Volkswagen Ballina brand ambassador. You're currently driving the Volkswagen T-Roc. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what that car is like to drive and maybe some of your favorite features of the car?
Yeah, I suppose I've been lucky enough that I've been involved with Connolly's for a number of years now, and they've been such great support over the last couple of years for myself. So I'm lucky enough to be driving a T-Roc at the moment, a nice 1 litre, 115 brake horsepower. It's great for me at the moment, having a newborn baby, so I have plenty of space in this wagon at the moment. So it used to be a car that I used to fill with footballs and cones and Mayo gear. Now it's full of nappies and buggies and bits and pieces like that. So yeah, listen, it's a really comfortable car to drive. I said, I love getting out. At the moment, it's very hard to get anywhere, except for today, we're like obviously drive outside our 5K. So I'm looking forward maybe to the weekend ahead to explore a bit more in Mayo and get a couple of photos of the car and show it off a bit more than I have been over the last kind of number of weeks with obviously the restrictions in place.
Absolutely. Well, that's great to hear. That was actually one of the questions we got was that you're a new father, and what car would you recommend for someone that is having a child? So the T-Roc, I take it, would be your top pick.
T-Roc, yeah, and I suppose I was in a Passat as well, a 2 litre Passat up to about 3 weeks ago as well. And the one feature I really found with the Passat as well was the boot space was brilliant. Obviously for me, with traveling a lot with sport, it was great for my gear and bits like that. But obviously being a new father, myself and wife found the Passat particularly very good for boot space and putting bits and pieces in it. So there was some space in the back seat not to be using for clutter. So yeah, that would be another recommendation. And then probably on top of that, and again, before I had a baby, was the Tiguan. I was looking up to drive a Tiguan on a number of occasions, and again, lovely high car to be driving in and to get around. So space is, I think, key for myself at the moment, and I'm lucky enough to be using cars that have space.
Absolutely. Well, that's great to hear, Lee. And congratulations on having a new child. It's it's a strange times, but it's great times for things like that as well. And I suppose as well, Lee, the news this week as we're recording is that you're going back training in another week's time, I believe. Am I right in saying that? How are you? How are you
just a
set?
week. We're good. Yeah, I suppose. Listen, the breakaway sometimes can be a good thing or a bad thing, whatever way you want to look at it. I suppose I'm that bit older now. I find obviously the break with family life, and I suppose I'm one of the lucky ones that have been on site at work over the last number of months. So for myself personally, it's been very busy. My structure, my routine has stayed the same except for football. So yeah, listen, I think it's great to know where we stand now, you know, with all the uncertainty. And listen, football takes a backward step with all the real life going on and stuff like that. But I suppose for my planning day to day and getting the schedule and getting fixtures and that, like, so this day next week we get back collectively. Obviously over the last number of months we've been doing our own kind of preseason, just tipping away, trying to maximize as best we possibly can with what we have. So and obviously and stay within the rules as best we can as well. Obviously we've seen a number of high profile incidents, so we try our best to stick to the rules, and we have. And to be fair, I haven't seen a lot of my own teammates since December 19th, since the All Ireland. So yeah, I'm looking forward to get back. I said fitness hopefully won't be too bad, and I suppose we have a full schedule of games coming up, which is great. You know, as county players over the years, we've probably given out that we've had too much time for training and thinking ahead. Where this year and last year in particular, we have no time. It's game after game after game, and that's what we're looking forward to.
Absolutely. Well, that's great to hear, Lee, and best of luck with the upcoming campaign. I suppose
Thanks,
looking back in the year gone, it's been a whirlwind for everyone. But I suppose for sports stars as well, particularly yourself, playing in the All Ireland final with no fans, effectively, what's an experience like that like, and Was that something you felt that maybe hindered you on the day, or was it a case of it just wasn't your year last time out?
Um, Listen, I honestly think. Listen, we are very lucky in Mayo that we have a superb fan base. I mean, they would travel anywhere to support us, and like, I mean, they've dragged us through a number of games over the last 8, 9, 10 years. Obviously, last year with the no crowds and bits like that, it was a different atmosphere. Sometimes, I suppose, for younger guys in particular, and we had a number of them in last year, really talented young guys. I suppose expectation and pressure might have been off a little bit more for them, so they can perform a bit better. Because sometimes I find with crowds, they can get a bit apprehensive and puts a bit more pressure. So from that point of view, it was very good. The All-Ireland final, I just think we're beaten by a better team, to be honest, Dennis. And that's just hands up. I can't. I love to come up with different ways of saying that we were that bit better. We just weren't. I always say the team that puts the ball over the bar or gets more scores is the better team, and rightly so. So, and unfortunately, we just came that bit short again. But in the overall context last year, I think it was a really, really good year for Mayo football, and it shows that we're in a good state, and it's in terms of the youth and development of the lads coming through the ranks. Like you look at Oisin Mullen, Owen McLaughlin, Tommy Conroy, likes these guys really performing on the highest stage. So for us as maybe older guys and guys in there for a while, it gives us great enthusiasm and freshness going into the year ahead, knowing what they can do and what we can do together as a group. So yeah, last year was a successful year. Obviously disappointing end to the year, but definitely missed the crowd. But again, it's whatever you want to look at it. It can be a good or a bad thing depending on your fan base.
Completely. And I think as well, look, these things you learn from these things as experiences more than anything.
Yeah.
In the long term, they can only benefit you. And I suppose touching on that and going back to the questions that were sent in a bit, someone sent in, what was your fondest memory in a Mayo jersey so far?
Is that in my overall career, is it?
Yeah, so to date anyway, before you win the All-Ireland now next year, or this year even.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the diplomatic answer is, I'm very lucky to play Mayo and all that, and but I suppose on a personal level, I've been very lucky to be involved in some great games and some ding dong battles with a couple of guys. But probably a standout performance myself, and I look back with it, is probably the 2016 quarterfinal against Tyrone. Got to mark one of the best players, Sean Kavanagh, that year, and came up and kicked 2 big points that got us over the line. So I think the reason stands out because I suppose I do a lot of work away from training and working on my weaker side. So when I kicked a bit of a outrageous left footed point, and I was kind of saying to myself, if the gaffer got hold of me, I missed that, I was probably going to get the curly finger. But when the sail over the bar, it was just kind of like the years of hard work that go into moments like that, and it's just one of those games that I look back on and have a smile on my face. And obviously with the result and brought us into a semi, that's always a good. So that's probably one of my fondest memories in the Mayo shirt.
Well, that's great to hear. And I suppose touching on that, the kind of the training that goes into like playing at the very pinnacle of the GA, how have you seen your training change over the years? And I suppose including COVID in that, have you had to adapt it massively over the years and with COVID?
Yes, COVID has been challenging. I suppose I think it's the mental aspect of trying to drive yourself to train on your own, not knowing when we're back, and I suppose having dates now, that's kind of brought that bit of excitement to everyone, so we know what we're looking at. But I suppose when I first came in 2010, 2011, I suppose the S&C side of things, the nutrition, it's been a very much educational point of view for myself of how it's transformed or developed a lot of players over the years, and the way you have to look after yourself to be part of the elite squads now. So I find that I have found that very challenging over times. You'll be doing your gym on a Monday, your train on Tuesday, maybe a gym on a Wednesday, Thursday off, collective train again Friday, and maybe a match on Sunday. So, you're always kind of on standby to be at something. So where now it's just trying to get yourself kind of prepped up to say, do I really need to go train today? Because I've nothing to look forward to. So that's probably the small bit of difference, just that little drive. So I love training, so it's a great excuse for me just to get out and about of the house for a couple hours. So but it's definitely been a far more professional setup as the years have gone on and on. So but again, I think that's just the elite status where we're at, and we have to be at that level to compete against the Dublins, the Kerrys, the Donegals of this world. So.
And I suppose speaking on competing against those teams, where do you see the areas for improvement for the upcoming season?
I suppose, is that from a Mayo context or like a general?
Oh, sorry, yes, yeah, from a Mayo context. I suppose. Where do you think you can improve most for the upcoming season?
I suppose looking like, I mean, we're all still chasing Dublin. So that's the standard bearers where we have to get to, unfortunately. And you have to give fair play to Dublin. They're doing their stuff year in, year out, regardless of whatever people say about it. So for us, it's just, I suppose we've identified a couple of areas that we need to work on ourselves. What we're lacking maybe in the final in December that we can do better on. So there's maybe a couple of skill acquisitions we need to get better at. Maybe collectively, defensively, we conceded 5 goals in a semi and final overall. So there are little things you need to be looking at. And I suppose if we identify them, which we have, and we work on them and we get that bit better, that's a couple of percentage. We've got better as a squad, and that means we're getting closer then to the likes of Dublin and carrying these teams. So it's not that we're a million miles off. It's only just kind of tweaking a few things to get that few percentage better to enable us to actually compete and beat the likes of Dublin and these teams.
Well, geez, you're definitely not too far off. You're almost there, and I hope to God. Maybe I'm a bit biased now, but I'd like to see you beat Dublin next year now in the final, or this year even. And I suppose, Lee, going back to the other questions we got sent in, someone said, "How do you manage to score a goal in most All Ireland finals?" That was one that was sent in. Have you got a plan for that, or is it just something that has happened?
No, it's very much off the cuff. I suppose right time, right place, all that kind of stuff. But listen, I'm lucky that like the gaffer gives me kind of a bit of freedom to be able to roam forward as when I can, and I suppose the way I've been able to play up till maybe a couple of years ago I was more of a freedom kind of half back rather than a defensive. So yeah, I mean, I suppose I'm playing with really top players that identify when you make the run and when to give the ball. So I've been just lucky enough to be there, and I suppose when you're getting tips from some of the top guys like Killian how to finish a goal, like so that also helps as well. So yeah, like they're great moments to have. Obviously, I would have liked to be on the better side of the results and scoring them, but I suppose yeah, they're good memories. And to be say I scored in the Hill against Dublin and the finals, they're definitely ones I'll be going on my CV to look back with good memories.
Absolutely, definitely worth putting them on the CV. In fairness, especially if you're looking for a local job, I'd say it goes down very well. And I suppose, Lee, as well, while we have you on that, in talking about positions, what's your favorite position to play in?
Listen, I love halfback. Halfback is, when I was growing up watching football and stuff, like looking at like Tomas O'Shea and these guys, I always want to be kind of a attacking halfback, and I think I did that pretty well. And then I suppose with how the game is developed, and you have to be, I suppose, you have to be able to multitask your game and adapt to situations. I became more of a man marker over the years. So listen, I was putting the full back line last year. New challenge for me, new experience for me a little bit. I've had some tough days there. And listen, that's part of sport. It's you live or die by these things, and I've taken some really hard lessons, but they're good lessons to learn as well. So, but if I've been totally honest, I always like to think of myself as an out-and-out halfback and one that just loves attacking as much as possible, but at the same time still be able to mark some of the best guys out there.
Brilliant. And I suppose you spoke on it there, like the learning lessons. What would you say has been the biggest lesson you've learned from your GA career to date?
I suppose, listen, I always find like there's always another game around the corner, and we're lucky enough that in GA that there's not a lot of time for thinking or dwelling on certain results. So like being able to go out and play Dublin All Ireland final. I know this year has been a bit different. We're waiting to find out whatever, but I suppose one lesson I took that was probably a big one was the semi-final 2019. I had a hard time against Dublin that game, but there's no point sitting around moping about it. I went away. I looked at where I can get better in the full back line. What do I need to do? Do I need to work on my footwork, my ability to be comfortable one-on-one? So I went away and I worked on, and I had an okay year last year. Obviously people want to see me bomb forward as best possible, but the reality is I'm a defender, so I need to stop people scoring more than attacking. So that's probably some of the lessons I've learned over the last 4 or 5 years, and hopefully we'll see this year what the gaffers think about it. I'm going to beg him to play me half back, but I need to get into the starting squad first before I beg it for instance. So
you've a long summer ahead of you, so you're going to be a busy man. And I suppose, Lee, as well, while we have you on, is there anything you do coming up to like the big games that maybe calms yourself down a bit, or have you any ritual that you do regularly just to kind of settle any nerves you might have?
I don't really. I'll be totally honest with you. I suppose the lads kind of find me a bit of a head job. I'm a bit mad, like, so I'm very relaxed, kind of don't overthink things. So I go through life kind of like I just float along a little bit, which is good and bad sometimes. So people don't know if I'm serious or I'm going to be mad or so. Like say that, for instance, the All Ireland final. The way I look at it is, we've trained for months and months and months on end. where people don't see you. People that you're always working with is the players and the management. So, and it's probably a bit of a contradiction that, you know, you go out to showcase what your ability is. So obviously with no crowds, it's all seen in telly. But I suppose if you've worked hard enough and you've ticked all your boxes for them few weeks and your months, and you know you've done the prep, like I just feel like I just want to go out and express myself, and if it works, it's great. If it doesn't, you know, as I said to you, I need to go back to the drawing board and assess, and I need to look where I need to go again. So it's just for me, just tick all them boxes before big games, go out and just showcase. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. Don't be afraid to make a run or a hand pass or kick pass. Like, we all make mistakes, and that's just the reality of sport, and it's just about moving on to the next one. So.
Well, that's some great advice. And I think that kind of goes on and off the pitch for life in general, not to try and overthink it too much. And
my worker giving out to me because they're trying to beat me sometimes to wake up at work. So
maybe not in work now. you might want to do an extra bit of thinking for work. All right. And Lee, I suppose while we have you on, another question that was sent in is, who's the best player you've played with? I know that you might do yourself a bit of injustice here, but who has been, I suppose, the best player you've played alongside, or I suppose played with or played against, Stephen?
I can answer both if you want. I suppose best player I play with, I've said every year with Mayo, is Keith Higgins. Just someone I looked at from day one that I wanted to aspire to nearly, because just the way he played the game, the way he approached the game, and again, a guy that's similar to myself, is very laid back. I remember finding Zippy, we all find Zippy asleep before the Kerry 2014 replay, asleep at 2:00 still. So, you know, but you see the way he performed then after. So probably one of my best teammates got to play with. Against, I'm sure everyone's heard the German Connolly one. Yeah, you know, I suppose a guy that highly rated and it has that X factor about him. So probably one of my hardest battles I've had over years, and more consistent battles I've had with in person on the pitch. So again, lucky enough to be able to, I suppose, having that trust to mark the likes of like a Jeremy Connolly and try and do a job on them. So yeah, it's been one I've found fun at times, but quite difficult other times.
That's always the way, isn't it? And I suppose, Lee, as well, while we have you on, is there anyone that you can see that's like maybe going to come into the team in the next few years, or currently after breaking into the team, that you feel that can really help the team push on and achieve even more success in the next couple of years?
100%. And this is where I think Mayo GA are in a really good place at the moment, with some of the lads that are coming through. And even for my own club, Owen McLaughlin, a guy that had a sensational year last year, and he's only going to get better. But I suppose for me, there is one guy that just, you know, he ticks all the boxes, and he looks like a real proper intercounty football already, as in he looks like he's playing for 4 or 5 years. And I think Oisin Mullen is only tip of the iceberg at the moment in terms of where he's at and where he can go to. I honestly think he's going to be one of GA's next superstars, and just the way he goes about playing the game and his approach to it, and the way he's built for intercounty senior level. Again, the same with Owen McLaughlin and Tommy Conroy. We're very lucky to have these guys, and they fit in so well what we're trying to do as well. So yeah, but I just think Oisin has that kind of real star quality about him, and I can see why the interest is there from like Australia, and teams want him. I just love playing beside him. He gets me really excited about playing beside him in a full back line. I don't hope James doesn't listen to that part, but just someone that, even just the way looking at himself at the age he was versus the age I was when I came in like that, a lot of similarities. He probably has that bit more X factor about him than I do, and that's what gives me great excitement going into the year ahead, playing alongside him.
Well, that's great to hear. And I suppose for any of those younger guys out there listening that are playing club at the moment, or going to go back over the coming months, what kind of advice do you have to anyone that is aspiring to play for their county, just like you?
Like, listen, I think sometimes a lot of us, our goals are too big. We set too big. Instead of, sometimes we just need to go back to basics and look very internally and keep very simple. So like when I was at club level, I just broke it into the small things. I need to go out and execute 3 or 4 skills that are going to get me better, not to get me noticed, but to make me better as a player. So like, go back in the club, like, I mean, like, I suppose, again, we're in Westport, we're very lucky. We have 6 guys or 7 guys in the panel at the moment been looked at. So, and for me to see that, like, and I suppose I have 10 years in the mall, so I've got to see them growing up and see what they can do. And so I'm like the godfather and within the Westford squad. But just I think sometimes, just I think a lot of people try and rush these things instead of, you know what, I'm going to go away at my club for a couple of years. I'm going to really knuckle down hard on my fitness and my strength and condition, but also just enjoy football. I think sometimes we look too far past it. I need to get bigger. I need to get stronger. I need to get faster. Why don't we just go enjoy football sometimes? It's something we love doing. It's not a job. No one is making us go out there and lace up our boots and put on our jersey. So like the likes that, like that's why I used to love playing football, because I get a smile. It brightens up my day knowing that I'm going to go back at either my club or my county. And sometimes, you know, if it works out great, you know what, I play and I go out there and I do things that I want to try and do. And I've been lucky that I got picked for Mayo. But for the guys trying to break in the squad, go out and enjoy your football. And that'll be shown the way, I know the way James works. He picks people that are informed, that are enjoying their football, that love their football. So it's very simple, but I think as well, we just need to look at it that way sometimes, instead of looking at, I have to get bigger in the gym. And sure, it doesn't work that way all the time, I'm afraid.
Well, that's some solid advice for anyone that is looking to kick on their career a bit. And I suppose, Lee, as well, you touched on it there. With social media now, you probably came into the team when there was very little social media. Now the young guys, they're exposed to social media from the get-go. It's almost part of being a high-profile player now these days. How do you find that that's after impacting on people that maybe... do people struggle with it within the team, or is it just something internally you have rules on it, or what way do you go about tackling it?
Yeah, like I suppose we've had meetings before in terms of, you know, I suppose at the end of the day we're representing Mayo and our county. So, I mean, it's how you perceive yourself and how you want to be seen and how we're going to represent Mayo. So, of course, we've talked about it. I don't think it's a thing where we put rules on. I suppose at the end of the day, we're all adults. So, I mean, you make your own decisions and you go by that. So, for me personally, I'm not a big social media user. I think maybe Instagram's my only one. I've got rid of a lot of stuff just because I suppose I'm busy at home and stuff, so I just don't have time as much to do. But I suppose, yeah, social media has a huge influence at the moment, I think, with certain guys. And I suppose it's more, again, the education, I think. It's just making guys aware of what's acceptable, not acceptable. Listen, if they go and do something unacceptable, again, that's up to themselves, but they're putting themselves in jeopardy of how they're going to be received and how we're going to be received. So there is that onus on lads that they're not just looking after themselves, but they're looking after the squad players as well, what they put out there. So, yeah, it has been definitely a full circle type thing the last 3 or 4 years. As I said, when I first came in, social media was non-existent. You go out, you do your few days having fun. You didn't really mind as much, but now with things coming out and about, with WhatsApp videos going doing the rounds and social, you need to be very much more cautious of what you're doing at all times. And listen, we're all young ones too. I mean, you know, you have to go and live your life too a little bit as well. But it just, I suppose that's the added pressure with it. But our guys are fully aware of what the principles are of it. And I think we are quite good at the moment. Although we need to have a chat with Mark Moore a few more times about TikTok and some really funny videos. So, but listen, I think overall we are quite good in terms of what we put out there and the message we try to get out.
Well, that's great to hear, and I would agree with you on TikTok. I think that's a recipe for disaster in a lot of senses. Doesn't matter what you're putting up in it. Well, Lee, it's been great chatting with you. I suppose before you go, I must ask you, if you're out this weekend in the T-Rock, where in Mayo would you recommend going if you are from the area, and maybe hopefully in the next few months when we do really relax the restrictions a bit more, the rest of us can go and visit Mayo. Where's your top place to visit?
Listen, I suppose in Westford we have loads, but where I love going out, especially in like showing off these cars, I love going towards Louisburg, that kind of region. You have multiple beaches across there. You have 4 different beaches, you know, and there's new coffee places out there. So for the views and for the walks and stuff like that, it's nice to bring out the family out there when we can, or before this went down. So I mean, just to get out about there. So like anywhere from Bertra, Old Head to Carnoustie, Carmore, like they're all class beaches and they're very popular. There's a couple of lovely cafes in Louisburg as well. So that would be one of the high spots I want to get out to now, hopefully the weekend when we can get out and about. And obviously Achill is a high runner, but I'll probably try and keep it as local as for I can, try and promote Westford as best.
You're dead right. I must call up there now during the summer for an old staycation. Fingers crossed, all going well.
Lee, we'll take it, all right. We'll take it, all right.
They might put me in a car for the night or something. Well, Lee, it's been a pleasure chatting to you. Best of luck to you and the team for the upcoming season. And thanks so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks, man, Dennis. It's lovely chatting to you. Thanks for the questions, guys, too.